my life easier. You know, take a piece of paper, whatever you want to do. I'm doing it on the screen like this just so you can see it. So we start off with LCV is equal to 1. It goes through the whole loop, and it gets to the point LCV, and then it outputs it, and then boom. Then LCV is 2. And LCV is 3. When you work with like JGraphs to kind of do that, you can do print statements. You know, you can output system out, print what's coming out. Other languages also ID, NetBeans, and Eclipse, and those also allow you to just on the fly do what are called breakpoints, and you can actually check the value of variables each iteration. It's really kind of nice and kind of nifty. But I'll do something like this, and then I'll know as I'm tracing through this. And this is simple. It's one variable, but can you imagine having a whole bunch of variables? And so I'll create a whole bunch of them, and I'll be able to track what's going on. You might have a spreadsheet. Again, a piece of paper and a pencil is fine too. You want to know what's going on. So this is going to keep going. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now let's say when it hits 10, right? It hits 10. Is 10 less than the limit? Yeah, the limit's 11, so it's still there. It outputs 10, comes to this one, now it increments it to 11. Boom, goes back up here. Is 11 less than 11? No, it's not. Boom, it pops out. So you should know right away that if you were to run this, it should print out 1 through 11 for you without you ever even having to write the code, just by tracing through that. That's the idea. And that's what the while loop allows you to do. It says while LCV, in this case, which is 1, is less than this limit, do that. You're going to do some code, whatever it is. In this case, print it out. Now, you got to be very careful with some of this stuff because you could create what's called an infinite loop. And the book talks about that too. We get into that stuff, and I'll show you. And the only way what happens is the loop just goes, it'll just keep running, and it sucks up memory and resources until you kill it or your computer crashes. Some students like to do it on purpose, and that's fine. Sometimes you do it just to try it out. Sometimes you don't do it on purpose. It's an accident, and your program's running. You're like, wow, it's really running a long time. What the heck? Well, how long has it been running? Well, I started like 20 minutes ago. Well, you might want to check it. You might have a problem. And sure enough, that's why a lot of times what I'll do is I'll do baby steps, and I'll do like print statements and things like that, just so I know that, okay, it got here. Oh, it got here. It got here to these different areas of the code. So let's see. Show a couple things, and then we'll go through stuff. So again, an infinite loop is a loop that never ends, and it happens to everybody. It does. You forget something, you don't do something correct. It's very simple. Now it says do not write intentionally, only because then you have to actually break out of it, and you can do that in JGraphs. You just end the program. It's execution. It's not a big deal. So now here's an example of an infinite loop, right? I'll make it bigger. I'm going to come into here. It's going to make a decision. It says 4 greater than 2. Yeah. It's going to output hello. And guess what? It's going to do it again. Well, there's nothing in the code that changes this evaluation. 4 is always going to be greater than 2, at least based on our numeric system, right? Nothing's changing. I'm not incrementing anything like I did before. So this thing, if you wrote this code right now, it would just, you'd have hello on your screen printed out constantly. Hello, 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 hello. It would just keep going until you killed it and broke it, or you ran out of resources. And bring your system to its knees. But that happens, and that's common. So that's a very simple infinite loop. There's nothing changed in there. You're not setting anything. All you're doing is just checking something and then printing something out. And it says, oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. I mean, the computer's going to do what you tell it to do, right? As smart as we think computers are, but they only do what we tell them to do. Although it's scary with AI, they learn a lot. Did I tell you, did we talk about that? I says they're having computers that are programming computers that are programming computers. It's really kind of frightening. Kind of. Anyway. So that's your infinite loop. Again, you suspect an infinite loop if the same output is displayed over and over again. Or, like I said, you start running the program, output is going to and then it's going to you're watching a movie, all this stuff's going on, and you come back to it. Now, there are times when you're going to run programs, and I've done them like I'm doing database cleanup or things like that, that it will take hours for your program to run because it's going through a lot of data. It may be going through millions and millions of data pieces. But That's probably not the case here. And like I said, in here it says control. So whatever you're using, you can control C or break out of it or just kill it. You know how to do it in Task Manager? Control Alt Delete if you had to. You could literally go to Task Manager, find the task, and you could actually just kill the application, whatever's running, and do it that way. I've never done that before. So I can just go to the app, right click, and I can just kill it. End task. That is the most harshest way of doing it. It's as harsh as basically just powering off your computer without doing software shutdown. It doesn't let anything shut down nicely. But sometimes you got to do it. So just be aware. Because we have been known to write bad code. It happens and it will happen. So they call this as a control variable, this loop count. All right. So let's do this. I don't know if you've got it with you. If you don't, you can follow along. What they want us to do in this one, you do it, is we're going to open up the assignment 4 from last week. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to JGrasp. And actually, I did open it up. So it's I'm sorry, it's assignment 4, assign volunteer 4. And what we're going to do is, and I talked to you about this before, and I'm going to run this again. So if you've got it with you, I'll give you a couple minutes if you want to find it. Let's do this. Let's see. If I run this, I'll build it again. It's all nicely set up with all the values, the constants, and I got the switch statement. And if I run this, enter an integer from 1 to 4. I'm kind of boring. I didn't tell it what each one was. Normally, you'd want to give it a little bit more description than just enter an integer from 1 to 4. You know, what does that mean? Make a nice little menu system, whatever. So I enter 1. Boom, it did it. But again, what if, and this is the thing I bring up, and this is where the while loop comes into play, is what if I want to keep entering stuff? You know, I'm working on a pricing system. I'm entering data. I just went over to Goodwill today. I dropped off some stuff for donations. I'd probably take it. They're going to go through it and say, oh, okay, we've got this, and they got this. They don't want to go into the program each time and have to run this. It's crazy, right? So you'd want to have a menu set up as what kind of donation is this? Is this clothing? Is it electronics? Is it furniture? What is it? What's the donation? And they can just keep re-entering it until basically you say, I'm done, right? That's the idea. So the idea with this is, and that's what you do with a while loop, okay? So the book has goes through it talks about it. It says after the input statement that gets the code from the user. So if I go through here, and it says enter an integer from 1 to 4, but before the switch statement. So I get the code right here. But what I'm going to do before I do that, I don't want to mess it up, is I'm going to save this as assign volunteer 5. So I'm just going to take, because I want to use the same code, I'm going to say 5, file, save as, 5, and then I'm going to save it, and of course I'm probably going to overwrite. Oh, I don't have it. Good. So overwrite that, or clear that. Come down. Okay. So we're saying we're going to get the code, but before the switch structure, so right here, I'm going to come in here, boom, boom, I'll make a couple of spaces. What we're going to do is we're going to insert a loop, and they even give you the loop. They give you a while loop. And what's going to happen? The loop is going to continue to input, get the information, and so the switch statement is all inside of this. You're going to keep it in there. You want the switch statement still there, but you're going to create that while loop, and it's going to encase that. It's going to wrap it. Is basically what you're talking about. So what do they want you to do? So they're going to say while donation type, and I can copy and paste because I'm lazy, like this. So while donation type is what? Now clothing code we know is 1, right? So we know that's 1. So while donation type is less than clothing code, so someone doesn't enter, enters 0 or something else, well, it's less than that, or you want to do what? You say donation type again. Is what? is greater than other code, which is 4. Oh, actually, we're going to do the opposite. I misspoke. We're not going to wrap the switch statement. This is going to check to make sure you don't enter any garbage. And then we're going to do open curly and then close curly. But we can still do that as well. So it's going to spin out and say you entered a donation type of which is not valid. Please enter a value, blah, blah, blah. And then it's going to ask you again for that information. So this while loop is set up to get bad data, basically. It's a simple way of doing it. And you can do it any number of ways, but it's a simple way. So they're going to do that. So it's like system.out.print. And I'm not going to enter all this stuff in. I'm going to just say you entered an invalid code. I'm kind of lazy. Okay. So I'm going to say you entered invalid code. And I'm going to say another system.out.print line. I'm going to say they want you to do please enter a value between, and then they have you actually do the codes. Between what? Between clothing code plus quote and quote plus concatenating and other code. So between 1 and 4. Now we could actually say 1 and 4, but then that's hard coding it in there, right? And we actually have the constants up here. That's why we put those constants up there. And other code. And you could concatenate and make it look nice. Just do a period there, whatever you want to do. Okay. So you entered an invalid code. Please enter a value between, in this case, it would be between 1 and 4. Okay. And then you're in the while loop. So what do you got to do? You got to check it. You're gonna do this take this exact same line here. You can copy it and you can paste it in there. Exact same line. Because now you're in there, they've entered bad data, you're outside of it. I'm up here, I get bad data. I come in here, it says, hey, if you got bad data, oh, you knucklehead, you entered something bad. Please enter something good. And it's gonna check it again. And get the value, and then it's gonna go back up to the top, and it's gonna check it. Now, if you enter something good, it'll pop out of that, and then boom, it goes to the switch statement. Now, again, it's only doing it one time in a shot. It's not set up yet for that to do multiples, but let's just do this. So I'm going to compile this. Like so. Yay. It built. And let's run it. Okay. So I'm going to make sure it still works the way it should. And I'm going to enter 1. And 1 still worked. That's good. Now I'm going to enter 0. 0. You entered an invalid code. Please enter a value between 1 and 4. I don't want to. I'm going to enter a 6. You entered an invalid code. Please enter your code. Blah, blah, blah. So it is working. Enter 5. Invalid code. -2. Invalid code. Fine. How about 4? Yay, I took it. All because of this. This section of code right here. So I've got the OR statement in here. While it's less than this and greater than that, in that range. Again, there's numerous ways to do that. This is just one way to do it. Now we still have the issue where we're in here, it only does it one time, but we can change that later. But that gives you the idea behind that. I want to walk around. Sometimes what developers will do is they'll take that section of code, that while, and they'll put it in its own method. And it'll be like called error check. And we can do that later too if you want to. That's kind of nice. You pass it, what you can do is you create one called check donation type, right? There you go. Create a method called check donation type, pass it the donation type. This all goes out into a method, and that's nice because it's just an independent method. It's out. Guess what? You're probably going to want to do this numerous times. You may have other ways of doing it, and that kind of thing, and then it's a method separate from it. Okay. Otherwise, this is kind of embedded in this code. Do that. In fact, you know what? Well, I don't know if they're going to. I don't think they're going to have it. No. They have The way you would do that is what? You would just go and you create another method, right? Like we've done. And we could do that. But we don't have to right now. Let's see. We got, I don't know, we've got time. But again, what you do is just you just pass in this donation type, and there. And you can make the method a Boolean method. So true, it's okay. It's a good donation type. False, it's a bad donation type. And it would just do that. So there's a number of things, and that's how a lot of developers will do that to kind of keep their code clean. They don't want to have this. They'd rather pop out like errors. A lot of developers will do entire modules. It's like this error module that will display a nice screen. Web pages are notorious for that. I mean, you've got a web page with errors. It has the same header information you'd see, like company information, all that kind of stuff. It's a template, but instead of seeing like product information or anything like that, it's just the error. Error, your page is not found. It's not just some blank page. You could do that, but and that's a lot of that's done by. I'm on the website, and those types of things, which we're not doing with Java. But Java, you can do something similar. You can make it look nice, user friendly. It's always nice when you can give the user information, right? Because again, if you ever can you imagine working on a help desk, yeah, the program's not working. What's it not doing? It's just not working. Well, what did it do? It didn't work. Can you be a little bit more descriptive? Give me more details. Oh, well, what are you doing? You know, I entered any key, entered a number. Well, did it tell you? Yeah, it's telling me something about a code I have to enter. You know, people don't even read the screens, everything. So it's nice if you take a picture. I kind of get on you guys and say, please send me screenshots of your stuff. Kind of gets you in that mode of doing some of that with that. And a lot of that's just for errors. It shows that you're trying to figure out what's going on. You take a screenshot of it. You're like, hey, because a lot of times if you do it, as you go down the road, if you just stay in this profession, you might be working with a vendor or consultant. You might be working on their application. They might say, can you send me a screenshot? Can you send me the log file to see what's going on with it? I don't know if you have to do that at your place at all. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. It helps them help you because otherwise they have no idea, or they have to dig deeper to figure out like what kind of stuff they sometimes. Okay. But anyway, like I said, so you could take this and you could put it in a separate method. It's very common to do that. Let's see what else we got going on. So while loops. Some issues that they have you run into. I'm not going to go through all these because I'm going to drive you guys crazy. There's pitfalls with altering the loop control variable within the actual loop itself. So you're in the loop and you try to alter stuff. You could do that, but you could change some craziness. So they have example here of don't do it. I have a loop counter as 1. While the loop count is less than 3, okay, you're going to come in here. Now, system.out.println, remember, like the if statements, the first line itself, it does, right? The second line, it does not. And that's why this says this indentation has no effect. So loop control variable is not altered in this loop here. So this is not incrementing. So what it's doing is it's coming through here, is loop less than 3, and then it just keeps doing it. And so actually, this becomes an infinite loop. You think it didn't. And this is why I brought up the issue when we start doing stuff is doing curly braces. You don't have to do a curly brace with one line. So if you have an if statement, the next line will always execute. Or a while loop, you can do it. Same thing like you said here. But you notice how this caused a problem right off the bat. If you put a curly brace at the top here, right up there, and one below that, right away that solves that problem. Because you know that you're including this information. You may, whether or not you want to. And it looks like, I'm assuming based on the code, so if I saw this code, I'd be like, well, it looks like they wanted this loop count increment to be part of it. I'd put a curly brace right after the while statement and one at the bottom of it, so that all things included. Silly stuff like that, you know, and that happens. That's normal, and it happens. It happens all the time. And that's why they call this fancy word the loop control variable. That's all it is. It increments it, it goes through. So if you don't have it, if you don't have that, it can cause problems. You can have issues. So let's see here. We don't have that here. There's no control variable here because this thing is based on what the user enters. It's all based on donation type. and getting the next integer. Now, I could do something like this. I'm gonna create a problem. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna comment this line out. I don't have to do that. I'm gonna rebuild it. So what's gonna happen now? And we can think about what's gonna happen now. It's gonna come in here. I'm gonna hit the donation type. I'll enter a bad donation. And it says, well, donation is less than this or greater than that. It's gonna do this, right? Well, guess what? I'm not asking the user for any more data. So I'm never able to alter that variable. So that's just as bad as what I did before. So this should create a problem. So let's run this. I'm going to enter an integer. I'm going to enter 0. There you go. One line of code wreaks havoc. So be aware. End. Because I'm not getting any additional data from the user, and so nothing ever changes in the loop. Just by putting that in there and saying, okay, now give me a new donation type. Now let's see what's going on. And then you can do stuff. That's what's going on with that. Anyway. So I'm going to kind of skip ahead a couple things here. Common loop, you start off at the top. While, here's a condition. While something is or isn't true, this is going to happen, then do it. Whatever's in the curly braces, it does that for that whole time. Okay? In this case, it's looking for bad data, and it's going to keep executing that. Like I said, I could put a while loop down here now to just keep asking the user if they want to keep entering donations. And we'd have to create a little menu or something for them so they could see it. So normally it'd say, what, you've got 4 options. Enter 1 for clothing, 2 for furniture, 3 for electronics, 4 for other. And then maybe you'd have one exit is 999 or something like that. And so if they entered 999, boom, it'd pop them out. Because you can create a loop, but you got to have a way to get them out of that. So let's do this. So that's the while loop. And again, we'll come back and we'll do more of that. I just want to give you a taste of all this. I'm going to speed up through some of these here. Let's do these. Altering definite, validating data. Increments. So let's do this. Okay, so for loops. For loop is typically used when you have a definite number of times you're going around. You have a number. Someone tells you, I need you to go through and 100 times, 200 times, 50 times, whatever it is, 10 times. I can use a for loop on the size of the class. So the class size 3x, right? 7. Got 7 to be used. So I can create a for loop based on 7. That's easy. It's not going to change. And now boom, 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 all 7. That's all. That's what a for loop does. Makes it really simple. So it starts off with a value. You create a variable and you initialize it, whatever value. In this case, we're doing 1. And then the second piece, you have a semicolon. There's the middle part. It says while val. Think about it in terms like this. As long as val is less than 11, you're going to do this. And then it's going to increment val, plus, val. And that increments it. And in this case, what it's going to do is just going to print out what val is. So it's going to be val is 1, val is 2, val is 3, val is 4, val is 5, val is 6, blah, 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 all the way up. And then as soon as it hits 10, it's okay because 10 is still less than 11. It's going to hit 11. It's going to look a lot like this one, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. This was done with a while loop. And here they're showing you the same thing. So I can do the same code. So it's just another tool in the toolbox. Is one better than the other? It just depends. If you know what you're doing, if you have a count, a definitive count, then the for loop is an option. Even if you have a definitive count, you can do that. Now the while loop, you don't have a count, maybe you don't know. So while val is less than 11, you can do that. Again, you got to remember to do the counter. But you can see I can do the same thing with a while loop that I can with a for loop. So it just depends what you want to do. Sometimes it's preference of the programmer, what they want to use. Things like that, it's like indenting, spacing, sometimes some things are preference of the programmer. Doesn't mean one is right or one is wrong. It's like a lot of things. There's a number of ways to solve the same problem. It's just do it. That's it. Okay. Different for loops and then do while. So let's do this. I'm going to go back. There's that one. A couple things here. So let's do this. I'm going to create some code. Doesn't matter. I'm going to create a new, I'll do file, new, Java. Okay. And I might just create something on the fly here. Public class, I'll call it for test. Open curly. We're improvising. We're just on the fly here. You never know what we may do. It's pretty wacky and wild. Public static void main string and then args. Open curly, close curly. Okay. Pretty sure I don't have a class name for test. We'll find out. I'm going to save it. And I'll save it. It's not a great name, but it's a for loop and I'm going to test. So that's why I called it that. We'll see how this works out. Okay. Like so. And we can play with some stuff. Now, with some of this stuff, what you can do is you can declare and initialize the variable ahead of time. So the loop in what I was just showing you in here, they didn't initialize val. Val is just already in here. You'd have to initialize it unless it was created before that. So you could do that, but you don't have to. So I can say something like this. I can say for int, I don't know, I count is equal to 0. So I initialize it. I say I count is equal to 0, semicolon. I'm going to have I count. It's going to keep going as long as I count is what? Is less than, say 10. Let's say less than or equal to, oops, 10. And then finally we'll say I count plus plus. Put it right next to it. Close that. Those are the 3 arguments I have. Hit enter, open curly, close curly. Okay, I'm going to save it. Now I don't have to put anything in there. Okay, I can just do this. I can really just build this. Are we building? Are we building? Wow, it's slow. What's going on? It says it's Friday afternoon. It wants to go home. Did it finish building that? There we go. Yep. And then run it. Still compiling it. Wow, that was slow. Okay. Now run it. So I just ran Java for test. It was very exciting. I got no output, right? Because I didn't put anything in the for loop, but it ran. How do I know it ran? I don't know. I'm assuming it ran. So you could do something as simple as like system.out.print line and say I count is equal to I count. And then it just tells you that it actually worked. If something came out, a little for loop. Okay. And so this should start at 0, right? And it should go all the way up through 10 because it's less than or equal to 10. So let's try that. Okay. And then let's run it. And there you go. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All the way up to 10. So that's your basic for loop. That is the basic what you'll do for a lot of stuff. If you're comfortable with this, you'll be fine. Notice I declared that in here. I put the int in front of it, the data type in front of it. And then I set it and I assign it. You've got to initialize it to something. As long as it's less than, you can do greater than, you can do whatever, all kinds of things, and then I increment it. Make sure you increment that. And again, then I can do whatever I want. I can put other code in here, that type of thing. But that's the basics of it. Nothing super exciting. When we're doing that. How are we doing? It's doing okay. Okay. So the third type, we talked about a while loop. So the while loop starts at the top. We talked about. Let me go back to that code really quick. Assign volunteer. Make this smaller. So here's our while loop. It checks the condition at the top. There's your while loop, right? Then we just did the for loop. The for loop has everything at the top also, but it's based on a certain number, a finite number of tests you're going to check, and you're initializing all stuff. This third type is called a do while. It's the opposite of the while. You kind of flip it. It's upside down. So what happens is you have, like they said, is a pretest loop. Checks the value of the loop control variable before the loop body. Pretest and post-test. So what happens is you come into the loop at the top. It doesn't check anything. Then it tests inside there. So you go in there at least one time is the difference. And you come out of it. So pre-testing or post-testing. So depending on what you want to do. So by pre-test, again, pre-test would be this. It's testing up here before you even get in the loop. It's testing it. Hey, did you enter something valid? Yes or no? Yay or nay, right? Whereas the do while is the opposite. And you have some code here that'll show you. You put the little do up there. You have, again, your curly brace. Close that whole block of code off there. And then at the bottom, you have a while. And in this case, this is actually a good example. Probably not the easiest to see, a little fuzzy. This company is asking the user for an initial bank balance, and it's getting that information from the user. And then it does a whole bunch of processing. And while the response is equal to 1, it's going to keep doing this. So again, do you want to see the balance at the end of another year? Enter 1 for yes. So it tells the user, hey, if you want to see another one, tell us, enter 1 for that, and we'll do it. And at the bottom, it's checking for that, saying, well, the response is equal to 1. Let's keep doing this. So again, the difference is you come in here at the beginning no matter what. You're going to execute this loop. So again, depending on what you're doing, sometimes you want to check at the top before you even come in there. Sometimes you want to just go in there first, do some stuff, and then check at the bottom. Again, in this case, you're having users entering a bank balance, getting the information, then it's going to the next line, and it's doing all these calculations, and then it's doing that. So they may just process at least one time. That's the difference. So it just depends on what you want to do. That is the basis of it. The book has an example. Well, let's see if we do this. I can go back to that other code. Improvise. Well, that's the while there. It wouldn't work really well there if I flip that around. Because if I made it where it went in here every single time. See, if I flip this around, that wouldn't work, right? So if I put the test at the bottom, no matter what, it would come in here and do this, and it would say, hey, you entered invalid code. So every time it would automatically do that. That wouldn't be good. No. So you can see, depending on the situation, what you want to do. Again, going back to the book example, it's using this to saying, well, I'm going to do this calculation. Give me a balance for this bank, for the bank, and then I'm going to do some processing and check your balance and the interest rate and all that. And then if you want to see more, you can do that. So that's kind of the idea with that. Let's see. The book had an example. Hold on 1 second, make sure. I'll record this. So we can do this. So I can just do a do, right? And you can do open curly and you can do a closed curly also. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do something. I'm going to do while what? Oh, I don't know. While, I don't know, I value is less than 10. How about that? Okay. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, well, I should probably initialize it up here, right? And say int I value and set it equal to 0. And then I'm going to say system.out.println I value is equal to what? I value. Again, just a way to see. And then finally, I got to do something. This could turn out to be an infinite loop, right? Because if I don't change something, because right now I value is equal to 0, and every time it comes in here, it's going to keep doing that. And it's just going to check it's less than 10. I got to put a control variable in there, right? Which is I value, but I got to make the adjustment. So I value is equal to I value plus 1. So it increments, like so. And I'm, just for the heck of this one, I'm going to comment this out, this piece of code, just so I don't confuse myself. All right, so that's still there. So I create a variable, int I value is equal to 0. No matter what I want to print out some of it, I want to print out at least the first value, and it's going to do that. It's going to say a value is 0. It's going to increment it, and then it's going to keep going until it hits. So it should print out what? 0 through less than 10, so it should be 9, right? 0 through 9, if I'm right. Let's build it. Oh, what did I miss? Oh, hello. No semicolon. Dang, dang, dang. Let's try it again. Okay. And we're going to run. And there we go. And do I get it? I get 0 through 9. Very exciting. I know. Cutting edge stuff. Whiles, do whiles, for loops. I know. All right. Again, and I can check on I can flip this again and check on the top. It just depends what you're doing. So that's just one way. When you come into situations as you get more experience with programming, you figure out, again, it's a tool in your toolbox. Which tool do I use? I have to get the nail in the floor. Do I use a hammer or a screwdriver? Oh, it's a screw. Should I use a hammer or a screwdriver? Oh, a screw, again, depending on the situation. To a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So, but you gotta just figure out what. Don't get frustrated. Well, I don't know if I should use this or that or what. A lot of times it'll tell you what you should use, but sometimes you just don't know. You have to try different things and see. Okay. All right. Does that make sense? Looping, you just want to be comfortable with looping. It's the basic structure that you'll use. Like I said, you'll use it for everything. Just be comfortable with that. Again, so you get the while, and then I put the for and the do while together there. That's the gist of it. Hopefully it all makes sense. Okay. Okay. Nested loops, a couple of things. So you can, I was telling you, you can take loops and you can do inner loop and outer loop. And I think the easiest thing I can describe to do this is this way. Well, here, I do this. Close that. Don't do that. Just open up Excel. No, not that. Excel. Excelsior. There we go. Okay. Why am I opening up a spreadsheet? Because spreadsheets are very easy to show rows and columns, right? I'll just make it smaller. And so if you remember, so in a spreadsheet, these are all rows. There's a row, there's a row, there's a row, and then here, A, B, C, these are each columns. You may have a bunch of data coming in of what is. So let's just say, for example, let's do this. I'm going to have, I like dogs. So I'm going to say, I'm going to use dog. And for each dog, it's going to have different attributes. Okay. So we'll say, let's do this. I'm going to have to make it too detailed. I'm just going to say let's just say Mari. And then, but this time I'm gonna do a header here, and I might do something like this. I might say age, and then weight, and then breed. I think you get the idea. So each one is got some data, right? And then I can have another dog, Josh, Bryce, Brooke. Okay, you can keep going. So there's going to be data in all these, whatever it is, 5, 4, 7, 3. Okay, and then a weight. Da, da, da. I won't fill in everything. The idea behind the loops is I can loop through with the for loop, and it'll start off here in this row, and the outside loop does this row, and it says, okay, I'm on the Mari row, and I'm going to get all the data, and then the inside loop is going to get each column. So the outside loop does the row 1, row 2, row 3. That's the outside loop. While I'm on row 1, I'm going to go column B, column C, column D. It's going to go through that way. Does that make sense? It's like a matrix. That's the whole idea behind nested loops. A lot of the things we do is with matrix, like XY matrix of data. They're showing an example here with customers. In this case, you're dealing with customers and colors of labels. So for each customer, we're going to go through the 20 customers. It's going to say what color. Okay, print 3 mailing labels for each of the 20 customers. Excuse me. So it's going to go through each customer and do something. And that's the idea behind the nested. For each something of one person, they have many things or object, whatever. There's many things. That's it. It can get kind of crazy, but there's a bunch of stuff here. Necessary options. Let's see here. Okay, yeah. Let's do this. Let's do the other Kahoot. Let's just see how. I mean, I know we kind of breezed through some of this stuff. There's still a little bit more, but let's just do for a good break. Let's just do the other Kahoot. This is chapter 6. Now I have to find it. Okay. This will be a good review. Help us and see. Spooky. I'll record that. Let's see. Yes. Nice. Do while for while. Cool. Yeah, there's not a loop structure called loop. Yeah, they can be. Most things can be nested. if statements can be nested, a lot of stuff can be nested. Sometimes you don't want to, you just gotta watch. But yeah, it can definitely be nested. Yeah, 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so a is less than, so initialize a is equal to 0. Well, a is less than 5. So that's 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's been a shift. And I know we're just talking about this stuff, but I just figured it was good to do it this week versus waiting until next week. Just means you were listening. Yeah, do while. Not only do while, do while. And do is at the top, while is at the bottom. Yep, yep, yep. And there is no such thing as a for while. It's actually the for next loop. They don't even call it that anymore. Some of the languages call it that, but they don't call it. Ding, ding, ding. Pretty good. I know there's a lot of information there. I know that. I get it. But yeah. Yeah. Right. So you initialize, set the condition, and then you increment or decrement. Remember, you can go both ways. I can add, I can increase, or I can decrease. I can go backwards. So either way, you can go both ways. Cranking along. Oh, yeah. Remember, it will cause an infinite loop. So I initialize I is equal to 0. As long as I is less than 10, which it starts off at 0, do something. And in the first line it's going to do is it's going to print out I. Does I change at all in the loop? No, nothing happens to it. It stays the same. So it's going to pop back out to the top and it's say, is I less than 10? Well, I is still 0. I hasn't changed. So it's going to do this again. Pop back out, pop back out, pop back out. So in here, you've got to change I to something, anything, in order to, otherwise it's going to keep going. No one chose maybe. I like, at least that way you guys are definitive about it. That's all right. 2 more. I don't know if I asked you guys this one. Interesting. That was a whopping 5 megabytes. Insane. Look it up. It's crazy. It's crazy how we get how many gigabytes on something so tiny now. And that was 5 megabytes. It's just insane. Last one. Interesting. Wow, you guys are pretty good. Yeah, knit. I like that. Or polka. Yeah, I didn't know that. It's crazy. It's one of those crazy. I love those different facts and stuff like that. Apparently, they cannot jump. Can't really get that. And they're so heavy. How is something that? I mean, yeah. Surprised they can't knit. How could they knit? Really, you check or polka. How could they polka? Well, they could polka. All right, that wasn't bad. All right, hopefully you don't feel too bad about that. That's pretty good. Um, so like I said, this week there is no assignment. I'm just gonna double check a couple things here. Um, yeah, question. I'll record this. Let me clear this. Let me compile this. The code to compile. Remember that? So the JSG is just a flag. Don't worry about that. The biggest thing is it's using Java C just to compile. Okay, because a lot of times you could also do this from the command line. I can write the same thing from the command line. So Java C and the actual name of the program with the Java, right? And then to run it, all you do is then you type Java, right? When I run this, I'll run this now. It actually just does Java. It actually runs, so it runs the commands for us. And you'll notice on my left side here, I've got all these I've got the Java file and the class file. And by now you know, because some of you submit the class files, when you build it, it generates a class file for you, and that sets it up. So that's a lot of the basics for Unit 1. Just creating programs, how to create the programs. Um, Again, you've all been doing that in your programs. I've asked you since day one to create comments in your code, how to do that. You can do it any number of ways. A lot of you have been doing kind of what I've done, like that, something like that, with your name, the program name, the date, things like that. I'm not going to be, again, it's going to be, you're not creating this stuff you'll do this for the project, but like, again, I like to do stuff like this. For an integer, I do I value. If you don't do it that way, that's okay. That's your style. I'm not going to get on you about that. I'm very much not about, again, that stuff. I just want to make sure you understand. Making sure what library do you import when you want to get input from the user? What's that? Scanner. So the scanner input, right? But you can also do the one where you get it graphically. Remember which one that is? The graphic one is JOption pane. So you can import that if you want to do that, and that imports at the top of your program up there. So in Unit 1, it was the hello dialog. I'll show that really quick here. So here's the hello. I don't have that one. Hello dialog. Sorry. There it is. So there's my comments, how I did it, and some of you do it very similar. It doesn't have to be that way, but similar with a date and that. Import. You do it with your imports. Every language does something similar like that. Java X swing. Again, you're going to be able to take this, use your notes, things like that in the book. So, it's not like you're going to come in here. I'm going to tell you not to have anything, so you won't have to worry about it. Okay. Even think about it this way, and that's what I mean. I want you to know that